Hello! Welcome to Crying in the Book Club. Wow. Another day, another week, another 2 weeks gone by since our last episode. It's very exciting times. But yeah, if you don't know what we are and you just clicked a button and found us, it's the Hit New podcast where three emotional friends talk about comic books that make them emotional. So if that is something that you're interested in, you're in the right place. And if not, it's too late. So, yeah, hi, I'm Alex. I'm hosting this week. And I'm joined by the legendary, the acclaimed, some would say, Emily. How you doing, Emily?
Oh, I didn't know that I was being introduced. Hello, Alex. If you, listeners, if you are not here for three emotional friends reading comic books and talking about them, no refunds.
No. We wouldn't do that. And, I don't know. When you heard the word legendary, you weren't like, oh, that's me. That's it.
No, I definitely
Acclaimed.
did not assume. Acclaimed, yes. Legendary,
Acclaimed, yes.
no.
Oh, okay, no, I threw it off. Sorry, I should have said. And the other guest, the legendary, the king of being Jean-Luc, my good friend, and maybe yours, Jean-Luc Botko. How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm glad that we've trapped some more people in grudge style with the podcast. Once it starts, you can't stop listening, and in 7 days you will die. So
yeah,
it's not good for listener retention, but
we're a bi-weekly show though.
New episode.
Yeah, well, yeah. Like if you come back to life in 14 days, that's fine. It's just a week where I don't know how the grudge works, but I'm guessing you just explained it, and there's not much more to it.
Is the grudge also die in 7 days? Because I know that that's the ring for sure.
Oh my god! Yeah, it is. It is the ring. It's not the grudge. The ring.
That's really funny. Chad made this exact same mix-up several days ago.
Oh really? I was totally doing a ring bit, but I think you can stop watching the VHS tape in the ring. It's not. It doesn't like captivate you and do the vampire thing where you can't look away.
You're still gonna die though.
You're still gonna die even if you see like 2 seconds of the videotape.
Yeah.
What if you rewind it? Does that do anything for you? Does that like get rid of it?
You would extra die.
But it's like it's backwards.
She kills you backwards.
You're like so you're alive. Is that not?
No, she kills you backwards. That doesn't mean that you're alive
so she's
now.
like facing backwards and then like.
I
would take my chances.
Will be facing backwards.
No, it's a she trick shots you. That's how she does like a 360 no scope.
That's how I want to go because like you got to earn it. I don't want them to just walk up and go like stab or like. You got to do like a sick gamer move.
Speaking of spooky ethereal girls that no one understands.
All right. Oh no! Right, the segment to the thing. I thought you were talking about Halloween. I thought you were talking about Halloween. I'm like, Emily, Halloween's like kind of long past.
No, Halloween is over. I was segueing into our topic for today because I thought that would.
We had a good segue that I butchered because what are we talking about today? But Shade, the Changing Girl. Yeah, by good old Cecil Castellucci, Marley Zarcone, Andy Parks, Ryan Kelly, and Kelly Fitzpatrick. So a lot of people on this book. And it's a 2016 Young Animal book, which was the imprint where they were like, hey, Gerard Way, you want to give us a comic book imprint that's based on like Vertigo in the 90s? And he's like, I guess I don't have to get together with the band for like another 5 years, 6 years?
That's good. Something like that.
It's in 6 years. So then he did this little thing. And we read it. We have some thoughts on it, I'm sure. But I'll do a quick summary before we get into that. So it follows this alien named Loma Shade, and alien from another planet, but she's just like every other 20-something who feels like their life is going nowhere fast. Bored out of her mind, her solution is to drop out of school, dump her boyfriend, and leave her homeworld of Meta behind, courtesy of the infamous Madness quote. So it's a quote that was from a poet called Rack Shade, and it kind of is a multi-dimensional gateway which she uses. So she steals the coat and astral projects herself across space. She ends up in the body of Megan Bohr, an Earth girl who's kind of terrible, kind of like a really, really bad person, like any high school move, like everybody from Carrie who's not Carrie. That's the thing.
She really sucks, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, I haven't seen Carrie. I've only seen the Riverdale thing of Carrie, and I'm sorry, but yeah, so she's there. she's in the body of a high school teen who's really rude, but is a popular girl. And meanwhile, back on Meta, there's dark forces that want the dangerously valuable coat back for their own purposes, and they're closing in on Loma's vulnerable physical body. At the same time, the primal madness that the coat channels, which is, yay, primal madness that the coat you're using is channeling. It's great. It's slowly eroding Loma's equally vulnerable soul. So that's sort of the setup in Volume 1. And we get some nice high school hijinks and some nice people and some not nice people and some nice people doing bad things. And then Volume 2, Loma's like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving secondary education for the ultimate road trip. So she goes to Gotham City because it's a DC book. You got to do that. She goes to Los Alamos and she goes to Hollywood, which leads her to find the star of her favorite TV show, Life with Honey, which is a 60s sort of sitcom. And then she ends up switching bodies with Honey, who's now an old lady. And she gives her one last acting role that goes really well. And Loma's friends are trying to track her down. But the trick is that at the end, Honey doesn't actually want to switch bodies. She's like, no, I'm good. I'm in a young body. I don't want to die. But she eventually does switch and gets a bit of closure with her last role. And Megan, the really rude girl whose Loma has been taken over the body, is finally dead, and Shade is left in her own body. That's kind of the TLDR of this series. There's a lot of stuff in the middle and a lot of confusing things, but right off the bat, did you guys like it?
I did, definitely. I really like this book.
I am not surprised.
Yeah, least surprising statement ever, honestly.
Yeah. I'm pretty lukewarm on it. I honestly really thought I read this book back when it came out, and then I started reading it and realized I have never read this before. I assumed I read the whole Young Animal line, but this one must have slipped through the cracks at some point. But I after reading all 12 issues, like there were parts of it that there were some really high points, and there were a lot of parts that were like really confusing and not necessarily like that's inherently a bad thing, and we'll like get into that, I'm sure. But I came out sort of feeling pretty mixed on it at the end.
Yeah, I think you've read the most Young Animal of anyone, I would assume. My Young Animal, I think I read a bit of the Doom Patrol. I read all of Milk Wars because I saw that cover in my comic book store, and it was fantastic. It was great.
Yeah, the Milk Wars was awesome.
Yeah, and then I picked up Shade the Changing Girl, both volumes for $4 overall at a local store. So it was like, if it's bad, it's $4. It's fine. And that was sort of my introduction to it. But Emily, had you read any Young Animal stuff before this one?
No, I always wanted to get into it because of Gerard Way, basically entirely. And I had seen the cover, or I had seen some of the art from Shade the Changing Girl, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. That I like the aesthetic that they've got going on here. And I have Milk Wars on my to read list, but this was my first foray into Young Animal. That's what it is.
Yeah. Young Animal. And so, Jean-Luc, you've read most of the other Young Animal stuff? You got some highlights there, or just maybe an overall thoughts on the imprint that's now over? So
sure, yeah. I mean, I read Doom Patrol, Mother Panic, Cave Carson has a cybernetic eye, which then became Cave Carson has an intergalactic eye.
As you do.
As you do. I read Milk Wars, and I read Eternity Girl was, I think, the name of that miniseries. Yeah, I mean, Shade, I will say that Shade the Changing Girl does feel very much in line with the rest of the imprint. It was kind of a weird imprint because it was... Once the book started coming out, it was clear that it was an attempt to sort of reanimate the corpse of Vertigo, specifically the corpse of late 80s and 90s Vertigo, and a little bit into the stuff from the early 2000s as well. So it brings a lot of those characters forward. I mean, Rack Shade, who is the inspiration for Shade the Changing Girl, that is Shade the Changing Man from the Peter Milligan Chris Bocolo book, Shade the Changing Man. Doom Patrol, obviously, reboot of the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol. I don't know where Cave Carson fits into that. I don't think he was a new character, but I don't remember him. So it was kind of an interesting imprint that was initially marketed as like a young adult imprint, if I remember correctly, and then was clearly something very different. I really liked Eternity Girl. I really liked Mother Panic, especially after it was rebooted as Gotham AD post Milk Wars. You can probably still find the very glowing reviews I wrote of, I think, all 5 issues that ran for. And I really liked Gerard Way's Doom Patrol. It was a good imprint overall, and this one, like, thematically and in terms of like what it's doing, fits into that imprint. I just don't think that it hits in the same way that the other books do. And I think that some of the issues that the other books have in terms of trying really, really hard to emulate classic Vertigo books are a little bit like I will say all the books in this line have that problem. And this one sort of, it feels more blatant here than in some of the other ones that can hide it a little bit better. But overall, I think it was a good line, and I was really sad when DC killed it, because it was one of the weirder lines of DC books, and I like it when the big two let creators sort of off the leash to make things that aren't just, a 17th Batman spinoff.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because this came out, I think, a few years after Vertigo went down, or maybe it was like a year after, something like that. But it was like Vertigo was no longer an imprint at DC, and then they decided to like, hey, let's do this thing where we're Vertigo. I guess they were looking at it like, oh, it's all old stuff. We want to look to the future, want to do something new. It's not really a sales juggernaut, so why don't we get Gerard Way in here, do the Young Animal thing, and then you've listed basically all the books that were in it, and it was like 6 or 7, so it never really had like a big chance to do it. I don't know what the sales were. I can't imagine they were too amazing, but I just kind of like that a lot of the series, like Shade the Changing Girl, the one we read was 2 6-issue volumes, and then they relaunched it as 2 6-issue volumes. So it's very like trade friendly. It's very like succinct stories from beginning to end. I think the same thing with Doom Patrol. The first series got like 12 issues, so it was kind of cool. But going to Shade, Emily, you quite enjoyed this one. What stood out for you with it? What helped it resonate with you?
I really liked the colors, and like the art is like so cool to look at. Like all the character designs are really good. I really like I don't know how much this comparison will mean anything to either of you, but I liked that Megan, the girl that Loma finds herself in the body of, is sort of like if Laura Palmer was evil. And I don't know, I really liked I really especially I know that this is a question further down, but I especially liked the first trade just because I really like the high school hijinks and like this alien trying to navigate social strata while having to carry the baggage of like someone that they don't know, and baggage that they have to like learn piece by piece, and while she is also like slowly losing her mind because of the madness coat. I don't know, I just thought it was interesting and fun, and I get like I don't think it could have worked so well without the gorgeous interior art and the colors. That's me, I guess.
I do really appreciate the pop art sensibilities of the book. I will say that. I really like the designs of a lot of the characters. I love the like line work that a lot of the characters have, like straighter lines on their faces and stuff like that in like, classic pop art style. So I am totally with you there. I think visually the book is a delight. And I mean, one of the issues I have with the book is that it sometimes feels a little bit too zany and weird just for the sake of it. But all of those pages look really fucking cool, which means that, it's sort of like is a dependent on like how I feel about the rest of the issue, how much I'm willing to forgive it on the strength of the art alone. But there's definitely times where I'm like enjoying the issue, and then something like that will pop up. I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. And then sometimes I'm like, there were issues where I was reading them, I was like, I'm not enjoying this issue, and then pop up and I'm like, can this fuck off? But it all looks really good, right? So
yeah, I think I'm probably a little personally more willing to forgive any of the rough parts of the story for the sake of how good the art is.
No, I think that's really fair with this book.
And it also goes, like, sometimes you go for a while where you're like 5 pages where you really don't know what's going on, or the story's not really moving forward, or it's moving in a way where it's like, is this important? Is this not important at all? And then
I have no idea how I would have felt reading this book coming out issue by issue.
I specifically have like a note that I wrote down about the first issue, that if I read that first issue in December of 2016 when it came out, I would have instantly dropped the book. I would have had zero patience for what it was doing.
That's the heart of Rebirth. So you know the standards, like, you know.
Yeah, the standard for what I'm willing to stick with is pretty low at that point. But no, I mean, I don't mean to like completely shit on it, but it is like an opening issue that is so disorienting because it opens with this girl, Megan, waking up in the hospital, and you don't know how she got there. And it's not even really clear initially if it's her waking up from a coma or if it's somebody else waking up from a coma. And it's not, to me, it took like probably 3/4 of the first issue to even realize, oh, her body is being possessed. Which I should have known because that's the same conceit as Shade the Changing Man, is that he possesses a person who's in the process of dying, possesses their body. And I should have, obviously...
Have you read Shade the Changing Man?
I've never finished it, but I've read like a pretty significant chunk of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess, like, you know, this is.
I mean, Peter Milligan. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, just saying, like, it's marketed at new readers. So I feel like most people shouldn't have been expected to know who Shade the Changing Man even is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had never heard of him until I like was in the middle of reading this and went to go Google something about it, and it doesn't have its own Wikipedia page. You can only go to Shade the Changing Man and then like go down to where it is mentioned on the Wikipedia page.
You made it.
Misogyny at work.
Yeah, no. So that's like that like reading this issue to issue seems like it would have been a bit of a struggle, honestly.
Yeah.
But it sort of becomes clearer like as that first issue goes on, like what is happening, and like it does sort of like set up the stakes, and you know where like Megan sat before everything happened, or before her body was possessed. It does like become clear and like sort of solidify like some of the basic stuff pretty quickly, like by issues 2 and 3. It's just, it is like a rough up, like, and I get that like that's like it's a cold open. I just don't think it's a particularly effective cold open. Even if fair. You know, I have no excuse for not knowing what was going on, but my brain's dumb sometimes.
What do you guys think of Megan's parents? Because in the first issue, like one of the main things that stands out to me is like they learn that her daughter is now alive, and they're like, "Shit, we want to pull the cord," and they're like looking at their bills and stuff, and it was like, "Oh," and then you learn how like Megan's a really shitty person, but it's still like you're her parents, though. I don't know, man.
Dude, I don't know. After like you learn all about Megan, I don't blame them. I am like, if she's a terror to her friends, I can only imagine how much of a terror she's been to them. Like. Yeah, like they're her parents, and like they should love her, and I mean they probably do, but like sometimes, you know, nobody ever asks. Maybe the kid just had bad vibes.
Yeah, it was just it was just striking in that first issue to be like, because you don't really know Megan at this point, and it's just like her parents are like I'm like, oh man, what's wrong with these parents? And they're just like, ah man. I mean, and then there's like the bills there, so it shows like obviously like it's a financial burden on them. But yeah, that was like. Huh.
I really like the reveal that basically nobody is happy that she woke up. I think that's. I like I don't like Megan. I like her I like her use in this story, and like I just think like I don't know. I think it's fun.
I think her parents are great comic relief characters who like when they show up like every issue for probably a total of 4 panels in each of the first 6 issues, and it's always like, oh, maybe our daughter's not evil anymore, or like, oh God, why is she back? Why is she back? Like, there's like they feel so like cucked in the first couple issues, and then as it goes on, like they seem to have a more positive outlook, but you can tell they're so timid and scared of her. I really enjoyed them, even though I think they're probably like pretty bad parents if they produced somebody like that. And there's that scene where Lona is like going through Megan's memories, and one of the 4 or 5 memories on that page is Megan as a young kid telling her mom that she's scared of the dark, and her mom tells her to not be stupid. So
yeah, I think
like it's
we do get in some of the flashbacks that like maybe her parents are like it seems like Megan was like shitty, but also that her parents like didn't really help the situation.
Yeah. But Megan definitely is a piece of shit.
Oh my god.
Just a horrible
like,
person.
Oh god. Yeah.
Not quite, so it's funny because this is like the conceit of Shade the Changing Man is also that he takes the body of an awful person. The awful person he takes the body of is somebody who like went on a spree killing and killed like 35 people.
Megan was mean.
But Megan, so it's a little bit of a different, level of being a bad person.
And yet, I feel like there are still people who would probably still say Megan was worse.
Yeah.
She was very mean.
Yeah.
I don't know that those people are right, but like I can definitely see someone saying that.
No, definitely. And that is one of the compelling dynamics of the first 6 issues is not only is it sort of like a fish out of water story with an alien trying to with the very like classic trope of like an alien trying to figure out an Earth high school, but also this extra layer of this alien is in the body of just like a terrible person that is widely hated.
Well, and it's like a person who makes everyone else feel like they're an alien there. She has that effect on people where it's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable here. It's like
it's interesting really that Loma was the alien, but Megan alienated everyone around her.
Whoa,
so true.
It's time for our first ever cry space. Yay. Sorry, getting ahead. Very excited.
End of the episode.
We've talked about the first half a lot. And, the first half, it takes place in the high school. What do you guys think about the transition where she kind of just, like, leaves and goes to sort of do her road trip thing, goes to Hollywood and meets Honey?
So this is another one of my issues, is that transition feels incredibly sudden. Mm-hmm. Because I was initially down for it. Like, that issue where she goes to Gotham City. But I was initially down for the like Shade the Changing Girl, like, doing a road trip thing, but the transition is just like kind of out of the blue, and they set up like the reason for it happening where she has started to become friends with these 2 people, River and Teacup. I think her name is
Teacup. Yeah.
And they've like started to become like this, she started to like carve out a niche for herself, and then they betray her at a dance, and basically lead to her feeling, like she wants to just run away. But it really comes out of the blue, and it feels like there's a lot that like was left unresolved after the first arc that is it's sort of like, I don't know, like it felt pretty unsatisfying to just do that change. And if this were a book, if this were a series that like got to run for 40, 50, 60 issues like a lot of those original Vertigo books did, and they were able to like go back to that and really return to those characters, which I'm sure was probably planned, and then the book got tied into Milk Wars and then relaunched and then inevitably canceled. But as it stands, as those 12 issues stand, it feels really unsatisfying to leave those strings like completely unresolved at the end of it. And there's also like a lot of what feel like false endings in that first arc too. Like there's that scene where Lona goes and apologizes to all the people that Megan wronged, and I'm like, oh, is this like the end? Or is she moving on from the high school thing?
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of moments like that just feel like they feel like they come too early in the story, and the payoff like isn't fully there for those moments that should be very cathartic in theory, but because you've only spent like 2.5 or 3.5 issues with these characters, they don't land the way that they otherwise might.
Yeah, and I mean, like, also the book is a bit, as we mentioned, confusing at times, which is interesting because it seems to get more confusing as it goes on, as she's more into the throes of madness, which is a nice like little literary like, oh wow, like that's cool, but from a reader perspective, it's not, you know, it's not the greatest
I feel
thing.
like you know, at a certain point, like you can only have the madness interrupt the reader's ability to understand what's going on so much.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's definitely like a unique book coming out in what 2016 during Rebirth, where all those books were so samey in DC Comics, and it's like it's neat, and like the art's really good. I think I'm about in the middle of you two in terms of enjoying it, but I'll probably read Shade the Changing Woman and see how that is with a new direction, and then you know, maybe some.
Yeah,
clarity.
I was also thinking of picking it up. I just I wanted to like the second half a lot more than I did. I thought that the pacing was kind of all over the place, and like Jean-Luc said, like that the transition between volumes 1 and 2 just didn't feel as smooth as I would have liked for a book whose first half I enjoyed so much. Not that I didn't like the second half, just that like it was kind of like I was riding pretty high on the first half, and then I was not as high, and that was a little disappointing.
And
but
you can also
I am probably going to check out Shade the Changing Woman.
Yeah, and you can also really feel the weight of like the impending Milk Wars tie-ins, because it really feels like by the last couple issues they are trying to cram 2 or 3 issues worth of story into each of the issues. Because I guess the other thing about Lona is that not only is she like an alien from Meta who is who has taken over Megan's body, but she is also heavily influenced by the Honey sitcom from the 1950s, which was, I don't know, I assume that's not a real sitcom, but I figured it was fictional.
It's like
but
I Love Lucy or something.
Yeah, but it is like a sort of like an I Love Lucy analog that was like broadcast into space and was a fad on her alien planet, which I don't know if either of you have watched Young Justice, but I couldn't help but feel like this character was very similar to Miss Martian, whose Earth name is also Megan, and also is heavily inspired by the protagonist of a sitcom that got cast to Mars. So that was just one of those things that like I just couldn't shake that the whole. I just kept thinking about that, like, oh my god, this is not necessarily in a bad way. It was just an observation of like, wow, this feels very familiar to me.
And this came out 2-3 years after Young Justice came out, so it could have been a bit of that inspiration for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely assume that it probably was in part, but the whole like second arc is basically Lona trying to find the main actress from that sitcom, and I don't know what the plan is after she finds her. I don't know how she thinks that's gonna go.
I mean, I don't think she has a plan after that.
Yeah.
Like she has the goal, and then
and her time is a bit. She doesn't know how much she has. So just kind of
which there is a compelling story there. I love the like sort of montage, and I think issue 9 or 10 where she's just going to all kinds of different places she recognizes from the show. So she like goes to the house where the show was filmed in. She goes to like, and the show took place in Nevada. So she like goes to the Grand Canyon and, all kinds of stuff like that. And it's just like, wait, it's not real. I love the like, wait, you're telling me it wasn't a documentary? And I have to say, when they start doing the backups that are like episodes of the show, I thought that those were really charming and really fun. Every issue of this book has a backup, and at first they're like sort of nonsensical, totally unrelated to the show. They're to the series. They're like okay, but halfway through it starts doing these backups that are like in like like sort of black and white of like 1950s or 60s television, and are like just episodes, supposed to be episodes of the show. And I really dug those. I thought those were like really fun to toss in the back.
I think the art's by like the Archie guy, so it's got that really classic like.
Oh, is it really? That's cool.
Yeah, I think Dan Ferrant, but yeah, it's like a great like 60s like, is the bomb gonna drop on us or not, or 50s, and it's like, oh well.
Yeah. No, I found those to be really charming.
Yeah, and I think that's like there are still some good emotional payoffs in the second half with her and Honey going on, but does kind of get like, it does feel like they're rushing, which is a little strange. You mentioned it because this book ran for 12 issues, Doom Patrol ran for 12. Like, it always seemed like that was the plan. So for it to still be like this rushed, it's I don't know what the planning process was, or if Milk Wars. I feel like Milk Wars had to have been planned from the beginning by Gerard Way if he's doing this. But I guess we'll never really know. And
we'll never really know. I mean, I think these books sold pretty poorly, except for Doom Patrol, which didn't sell amazingly well, but was a fairly successful book. And I would posit that DC Editorial was itching to relaunch them and get some of the hype back that was there at the beginning. So who knows if Milk Wars was always in the cards for these books or not. Like, it's
DC Editorial doesn't always make the right decisions. Surprise.
I mean, especially in this era, right? Like, it's hard not to. I mean, obviously,
it's the end of Dan DiDio's reign. This is the end of his.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but this was in the height of his power. This was,
Well, yeah. I mean, New 52 was probably like.
Sure, but even Rebirth was like, I mean, Dan DiDio like stuck it out all the way through Rebirth and didn't like get booted until 5G like failed.
Yeah. But I think New 52 he was the guy who was like, let's relaunch everything except Action Comics and Detective Comics.
Smart guy.
Yeah. Now they're all back. It's great.
Yeah. I think like one of the compelling things is that, so to go back to the Honey thing, like that, sort of culminates in Loma swapping Megan's body for Honey's, right? Where the actress who plays Honey ends up in Megan's body and Loma ends up in her body. And the reason she does this is because the actress is about to commit suicide because she's old and doesn't want to be alive, and she's like already dying and doesn't really want to like live out the last months or whatever of her life in pain. And here comes Loma Shade to put an end to that. Which is like, this is also like a thing in Shade the Changing Man where like he like dies and is resurrected like multiple times in different bodies every time. And thematically, this book always feels like it's on the verge of saying something interesting about that, and never really gets. I don't think it ever really gets across the finish line. Like the culmination of the first arc is, Megan still being alive somewhere in the back of the body's consciousness and seeing all of these things, and then sort of coming back at the end to have like a final confrontation where Loma basically kills her and kills what was left of her and takes control of that body, and then ends up in a different body at the end. But it never quite feels like the writing can really connect the dots in terms of what it wants to say thematically. It always ends up or to me at least, it always ended up sort of feeling like, well, this was something that happened to Shade the Changing Man, and we should sort of like emulate those tropes and emulate those plot beats, but without the sort of like underlying like without like Peter Milligan like actually being interested in like writing a book about a character who at some point kind of ends up being trans.
And I think it's interesting to like, sorry to just jump in, like I almost would prefer, like I it kind of makes me want to read the original series, because I think this concept would work like in a Quantum Leap sort of way, where it's like episodic and sort of you're just a new person every time. Maybe it's like for an arc or two, and I'm not sure if that's what Shade the original Shade did, or if
it's longer than like an arc or two at a time, but
yeah, okay,
it is kind of like that.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. I was just
No, that's fair. I was honestly done with that point, and that's but that's just like what I keep coming back to with this book is that like, there's so many like high points in the individual issues of stuff that's like really fun, and there's like a lot of like really good dialogue writing. And it just can, there's none of it ever feels like it gets over the finish line and is like purely satisfying as either like an ending or a resolution, or even in terms of like how the characters like end up in their like relationships to one another. It all just feels like it's like left dangling, at least to me.
And even like the end of this series, it's just like it's on such it's not an open ending, but it's such like it is almost like, okay, what's next? Because like Shade now has a new body, Megan's gone, she can do her own thing. Honey's dead, but she had a nice like final moment where she got to see herself act and kind of go out on top, as it were. But at the end of it, it's just like I want more time in the high school. I want more time in sort of that.
Yeah.
In that first arc, and and then also I am kind of interested to see what Shade the Changing Woman ends up being, but I'm also a little skeptical because I don't think it got the full issues it was supposed to. So
yeah, it all those books got kind of canceled early. What did you guys think of the like back and forth between like the events happening on Meta and the stuff happening on Earth?
I generally didn't usually care that much about what was happening on Meta.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, you and me are really polar opposites on this book, I think, Emily, because I was always like, whenever they would jump to Meta, I was like, oh my god, this rocks. Can we get a whole book that's about like them trying to... I wanted like the book that was just like all of them trying to track down like the M-Vest, because I thought that they were like, I love the like the alien designs. I love her
I like
ex,
the designs a lot.
The weird
I
little
like
octopus man. Yeah, Lepuck. He's adorable.
A little panda octopus.
Lepuck.
Yeah. He's got like he's in like a cool band.
And I think I would have liked the meta stuff more if the book was a little more cohesive and it was clear, like, okay, now like it was clear when they were a meta, but like in terms of like there were so many pages and so many instances where I had to like go back and read it and still be like, what's going on? For them to also be doing a double story, or not a double story, but two different places going on, it was kind of if it was cleaner, I think I would have liked meta more. Because meta was very clean, and maybe that's why you liked it too, Jean-Luc. Where it's like
I didn't dislike the meta stuff. I just like was not as invested in it. I guess it's just like, oh, we gotta find the coat. Gotta find the coat. Gotta find the coat.
They gotta find the coat.
They gotta find the coat. When
Coat's important.
Mm-hmm. So, we all know that you all love the parents from this book, but what are your favorite characters? What's your favorite character in here?
I mean, I really liked Loma. I thought she was fun. And she was interesting. And I liked what was her friend that she made? The guy
River. Right?
Yeah, River. I just couldn't remember his name. Yeah, I liked River. Yeah, like Teacup was okay. I thought a lot of the characters were interesting, but I guess I liked Loma the most.
I think I ended up liking Loma the most, mostly after, I think it's issue 7 is the flashback issue that is like takes place almost entirely on Meta and is about like her upbringing and her parents. Mm-hmm. And then her like going to college and sort of becoming completely disillusioned with life. I enjoy characters who are disillusioned with life and then find a reason to live. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Well, it's interesting because that's technically the start of the second arc, and it like really doesn't like it doesn't help the transition because in the next issue you're kind of like thrown into something else. But I think as a standalone issue, that was probably my favorite one.
It's my favorite issue of the series for sure.
Really good.
It also has like it's the first time it changes artists too. It's Marguerite Sauvage who draws that issue, and it still has like the same sort of pop art sensibilities as the rest of the series. But I do think there's some slight differences that make me like end up liking the art in that issue a bit more than I think. Not to put down the rest of the art because like I've said, I really enjoy the rest of the art, but I think the art in that issue is exceptional. Like I love how like so many of the pages are just characters superimposed on these really like liquidy loose backgrounds. It really like encapsulates the sort of like memory aspect of it in a way that's pretty cool, that like this is Loma remembering things, but a lot of the details aren't fully filled in it's just there's just sort of like these like amorphous shapes in the background that I love, and also that could just be how meta looks because it is kind of like a weird planet out of time that sort of defies traditional characteristics of existence or whatever. But either way, I think it ends up looking really really cool. And I also love that page that's all of like Loma going through like multiple different partners trying to find someone who cares about the same things that she does and just being like completely disinterested in them because they don't care about Earth. So I really like that issue.
Those Earth heads.
And that's also the issue that ends with like the dance scene where she goes to the dance with River and Teacup, and they in what is a really kind of shocking like character turn end up like betraying her, and basically what happens is like the whole school like turns on her and like throws like these like confetti like pieces of confetti with like all kinds of insults on them at her. Well, they squirt glue on her first, and then they throw all of the papers on her, and it turns out that her friends were in on it, which at that point in the story felt a little bit disingenuous to me, but they had to get her out of there somehow.
Because they knew she was an alien, or maybe didn't believe her. Yeah, it's like
that was. I thought that the dance thing was kind of dumb.
Like I understand some people being in on it, but I feel like the people she's actually been talking to being like, "Hey, I'm an alien. Here's the proof." Whoa, crazy!
Yeah.
Wow. But maybe they are just racist. So we don't know where
they're just xenophobic. Yeah.
Literally xenophobic.
Yeah, literally xenophobic.
So, Jean-Luc, you've already read Young Animal. Emily, you haven't really. Does this make you want to go back, Jean-Luc? And Emily, does this make you want to read more?
It does, actually. I mean, I was always kind of interested in the Young Animal imprint, so this jump starting me into it. I'm kind of interested in checking out more. Maybe we could do more for the show.
This is gonna sound really mean. It makes me want to reread the good Vertigo comics. More than any, not that I would be like opposed to like rereading Young Animal stuff. There are plenty of Young Animal books that I liked, but my first thought after I finished this was like, damn, I should go back and like actually finish Shade the Changing Man. So that's kind of where I ended up. Or like I should go reread Kid Lobotomy, which is the other Peter Milligan book that is like concurrent with this. Over at IDW, I think when all of the Vertigo editors and writers got fired by DC and hired by IDW.
That was a nice year and a half, and then IDW was like,
God, that mind. Black Crown imprint.
We're gonna make more Transformers and Green Lantern stuff. That's oh my god! Well, they got the Vertigo person. They got what was her name? Anyway, the person who like managed Vertigo. And they got her. Was that a Black Crown? Anyway, it was a good time.
Yeah, sorry, I was blowing my nose, but yes, you're thinking of Catherine Berger, right? Or Karen Berger.
Karen Berger. Maybe she's Catherine Berger, Karen for short. I don't know. The point is, but I'd love to like look at two events, like just jump into a random Marvel or DC event and read it, having not knowing the context and comparing it to like something like I don't know if Milk Wars is far enough from DC that it would be good though. Like I just like kind of looking at two different things through the events. It would be miserable because the event would probably be shit. But anyway, I was just thinking out loud. I guess to almost wrap it up, but which character in Shade the Changing Girl do you think cries the most?
Tico.
Tico. Yeah. No explanation needed, Emily. That's
Yeah, I feel like that one's pretty. At least as far, I feel like any explanation is evident within the text.
Yeah.
What do you think, John?
I think it's probably Teacup. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think LePuck is a good answer as well. I love that like LePuck is definitely like down bad and crying a lot at the beginning.
LePuck is a good runner-up, I believe.
But then he has that turn where he's like, I can't love her anymore. I have to start hating her so that I don't do something stupid. And I love that as a character turn. It's very good. And seeing him go from like being this like really adorable little squid man to like just constantly like looking angry and pissed off all the time. I think that rocks. I really like Lepuck. I mean, I like I said, I like all the meta stuff,
Angry
but
little
Lepuck
squid
is
man.
He doesn't
yeah,
do a good
Lepuck
job
is a
of looking
standout
angry,
for
but
me.
it's cute.
Yeah, yeah, he has like the
Lepuck, Leroy. I'm sensing a
Yeah, there's
pattern.
Jean-Luc loves the French. I don't know.
well.
He's a lover.
You heard
I
it here
have
first, folks.
I have to say, like, look, Lepuck just has a lot of the same. He appeals to a lot of the same parts of me as like Goose from Saga, who's just a little guy and he's very adorable. And then he like also has that same turn where he like jumps at somebody with a battle axe and just goes sicko mode. And Lepuck kind of does the same type of does the same kind of thing. I love that guy.
Have we read Saga for the show yet, or were we planning on it? And
we're
I just
going
read
to
it?
at some point.
Yeah.
Cool. Any excuse to read that is great. I think the good old parents probably cry the most. They're very sad, but
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people in this book cry a lot. I think the parents cry a lot. I think, I think all of like Megan's quote unquote friends on the swim team cry a lot. Like nobody in this book is having a good time except for Loma Shade, who is having a blast for most of the book, but no one else is enjoying themselves or having a good time. I gotta say, I do really. I know I've been like I've probably come across as pretty down on this book, but I do have to say I do really admire the ambition of it. Like there is something to be said for a writer like respecting the readers of the book enough. It's what Cecil with Castellucci. I cannot pronounce Italian last names, but I do really admire the
Castellucci.
Castellucci.
Yeah.
That's it. I do really admire the like, not treating the reader like an idiot at all turns and explaining and feeling like everything has to be explained and sort of just like dropping them in and teasing out those details as it goes along. So there is something about to that like and there's like it's a weird feeling that I have too, because like a lot of my favorite comics do that, and I genuinely can't tell if this is a book that just got canceled before it should have ended, and so never got to the points where a lot of those like other like headier, Peter Milligan, Grant Morrison, Neil Gaiman books get the chance to get to, if this book would have gotten there eventually, or if it's genuinely just like, the ambition was there and the execution was just lacking the whole time. And it sucks to like end up in that space of like, I guess we'll never know, because maybe this book could have been something great, but because it only got like a total of like 20 something issues, including Shade the Changing Woman, which we didn't read for this, like it was never able to meet its potential and make everything sort of come together and feel cohesive.
Yeah, I will always prefer an ambitious mess than a
Totally.
I'll always prefer an ambitious mess than like a boring mess.
No, I definitely agree with that. And part of the issue too is like, and it's kind of ironic as well, because those Vertigo books were sort of like that inspired a lot of these young animal books are the books that brought about like the era of like the trade and catering to the bookstore market and like buying books in trade being a big thing. But this book especially very much feels like, we have to get from point A to point B in 6 issues. We have to get all the way to the end of like this big confrontation between Loma and Megan within the span of 6 issues, where it probably could have used more like 8 or 9 with like with more development for the subplots thrown in there. But because of the way the realities of the market, you have to get to that big endpoint in 6 issues so that it can neatly fit into a trade.
And the second half is paced worse, like the second trade. So
it's increasingly something that I'm like thinking about more with like modern comics, is that so many of them like feel like they're written like they're not written to be read as single issues. They're written to be put in trades and sold at a Barnes and Noble, and it really feels like it is a disservice to the form. Because I just like went back and read like the first over the last couple days, the first like 8 or 9 issues of Shade the Changing Man, and like the stories, like there's like a sort of like connective tissue of like those first few like that first series of issues that all builds to something, but they tell all these side stories like as they go through, they go through. Like the first issue is like an establishing story, and like the next 2 issues are like a 2-issue arc about the assassination of JFK, and then it goes on from there to like do like these 2 or 3 issue stories that are all like end up sort of like building towards something. And I feel like that structure could have worked really well for something like this if it was kind of like more of an anthology story about like, you know, and it could still do the transition to the road trip thing where it's like starts off doing like those anthology stories about like different things that happen in the high school and how that's like weird and wacky, and you know the contradictions between who Loma is and who Megan was, and all like ends up building towards a final conflict. And then you could do something similar for the, you know, her inevitably leaving and like going on the road trip and finding honey at the end. But it's so condensed, and that I feel like does not do this series any favors.
So we reached the end. Would you recommend Shade the Changing Girl? Or who would you recommend it to? I guess too as well. If it's like a,
I mean, I would probably generally recommend this book. It would like. I mean, there are probably people that I wouldn't recommend it to, but you know, like for the most part, like I would say, like, yeah, I liked this book, and I think that other people should probably check it out.
It would be a tough recommend for me. Like I definitely think that there are like certain subsets of readers who I think would really respond to this book, because like I said, there's stuff here to like, and there are people who aren't going to be as bothered by the things that bothered me and put me off about it. So there's definitely a subset of readers where I would say, yeah, like you should definitely check out Shade the Changing Girl. It just ends up being one of those books where I would much sooner recommend, and I hate to keep going back to this, but I would much sooner recommend people go back and read stuff from that early Vertigo slate. Like I would tell people to read, you know, Animal Man or Shade the Changing Man or Hellblazer or Sandman, or even some of the stuff from like the early 2000s, like before I would, you know, recommend, or Doom Patrol, before I would tell them to like go to this, like look to this book. And then like if you like stuff like that,
yeah,
then this might be something in your wheelhouse. Which is why it's weird that it doesn't end up actually being in my wheelhouse. I do love stuff like that, but I think some people would like, people's mileage is obviously going to vary.
I think it's not like a new reader friendly. It's not like, hey, I'm getting into comic books. What should I read? Read Shade the Changing Girl. I feel like you almost have to be in a little bit and like understand the medium a little more to do it.
For sure.
You know, then again, these were made presumably for people who, you know, never read comics, or people or younger comic readers. So maybe our baggage is an issue with that. Who knows? Like none of us are really coming at it with a fresh like thing. So
I was actually going to say that conversely, I think that as tough as like the first little like issue and a half, 2 issues could be for a new reader, I actually think that this is probably a better jumping in point, because I think the way that it's written is pretty accessible, in terms of like it doesn't like tie into a bunch of stuff. It has like it relies on like some traditional tropes that it employs pretty well, and overall the dialogue is pretty well written, and it also like kind of demonstrates the scope of like what even big 2 comics can do outside of just like pure superhero stuff. Not that I think the superhero stuff is bad, and I think for a lot of new readers, like superhero comics definitely can and are the way to go. But I definitely think that this is actually probably something that I can actually see new readers responding to this a little bit better than people who have been reading comics for a really long time, who have like a long history, because they don't come to it with like the baggage of expectations of what like, because like if I went to somebody who's like, interested in reading comics, doesn't really have much knowledge of them about them, and handed them Shade the Changing Girl, they wouldn't come to it with the weight of like Peter Milligan and the expectations of old Vertigo that I come to it with, and unfortunately cannot like fully set aside to talk about it in a more objective light.
Like exactly. I mean, looking at all the comics I've read and all the ones that I've liked, when I started getting into it, and now like revisiting them, and they don't connect with me anymore for various reasons. Some of them are like, oh, Why the Last Man just doesn't age well, and some of them are just like, hey, this connected with me when I was like 13, and it's like 10 years later, more than 10 years later, Jesus, many years later, and it doesn't. So, yeah, I don't know. Check it out. I mean, if you see it at your store for $1.99 like I did, I think I recommend it the way I did. Like, buy it, check it out. Like, it's good art at least. So
yeah, well, I was just gonna say, like, purely from a visual standpoint, like there's a lot of like gorgeous pages in here, and there's not a lot of comics that look like this, and that's part of what I mean when I talk about like the scope of what comics can be, is that there definitely are books that have had similar visual sensibilities in the past. I think of like Ecstatics for instance, which also has like a lot of pop art influences to it. But it is a break from DC and Marvel's individual house styles, but it's also a break from like what ends up with what you can't really describe as a house style, but there definitely is a sort of like stylistic trend to like Image and non-Big Two books, where you see a lot of similar visual stuff being put into those, like going into those books. And this does have this is a big jump or not a huge jump, but it is a significant jump from even what you would see in, a lot of great like indie books that I really like. So from that standpoint, like it's hard not to say like, you should at least, it's worth reading at least for the art.
Did you hear that sound? Because I sure did. Wow, what a sound. That's a doomsday clock saying it's time for our inaugural, first ever cry space. I was going to add another word that meant first, but I couldn't think of another one. So that's what's making me cry this week. Emily, what is your cry space this week?
My cry space is that I did my nails a week ago, and then yesterday I chipped off some of the polish on one of my nails, and so I ended up having to take all of the polish off of one so that I could redo it. But I haven't redone it yet because it takes like an hour for nail polish to dry, and that is annoying to be able to sit and not use your hand for an hour.
For the listeners, the finger that Emily has,
it is the middle finger.
It's the middle. It's perfect. It's like you can flip someone off and they're like, oh, they have no nail polish on, but little do they know. Little do they know. So that's awesome.
So that's my cry space. That's why I cried. Is because I have to redo my nail polish.
Yeah. Jonathan Lucas.
I didn't have one prepared, but Emily's cry space actually reminded me of something that happened earlier this week, where I've been going back and forth with my sister because I want to try painting my nails. And I went back and forth with my sister, and she gave me like a ton of recommendations because I was just going to do a black because I don't want to do any other colors. I just want to try like a black. And so I went to Target last weekend and bought everything that she told me to buy. And then got home, took the nail polish out, and realized that it had looked black because of the lighting in the Target, and in fact was brown. And I do not want to put on brown nail polish because I feel like it would look pretty bad. So now I just have I have nail polish remover, and I have like the cover stuff that you put on afterwards. And I have a vial of brown nail polish that I don't know what to do with. And I told my sister this, and she's like, at least it's seasonal to like the fall. And I'm like,
well, if it's unopened, you should be able to take it back and
but I threw away the receipt.
It. Oh,
okay. You could try just your middle finger, paint that brown, see how it suits you.
And because of that, I instead of going back and buying the nail polish that I actually wanted, I got so annoyed that I'm just like, I'm not doing this now.
Okay, well, in 6 months when you decide to do it again, you'll have everything you need except the black. So,
yeah, exactly.
That's inspirational.
Exactly.
My Christ,
What about
I've
you,
been
Alex?
cat sitting for the last 2 weeks, and they're coming home today. All is well. And I slept over tonight because the cats get sad when I'm not there. As you know,
Aw.
one last hurrah, and then I wake up to the sound of vomiting, and I'm like, oh no,
No.
oh no. So yeah, the cat did not like the wet food last night, and it was returned. It was returned in full. So yeah, it was like made it 2 weeks without any incident, and the day they're coming back, I'm like, oh yeah, your cat just threw up. I don't know why. I think it was the food, but yeah, she's better. She ate dry food, and then she played with her carrot toy. So hopefully it's good. I'm gonna check on her after this episode. But yeah, cats. Oof. They're very cute. Yeah. Actually, our friend is very cute. I think he just adopted a cat. He was gonna get a dog. He was like 99% getting a dog, and then the dog was adopted. So now he's getting a cat. That's the last I heard. I don't know if Jean-Luc yeah.
Well, I know that our friend, he bought a bunch of the supplies required for having a cat. So I'm excited to have another friend with a cat who shares cat pictures.
Heck yeah. Exciting. Well, yeah, never enough of those. You should get a cat. But you're living in an Airbnb, so.
Yeah, and then I'm going to go back to my parents' place where there are currently 3 cats, and I don't really want to introduce a fourth to the mix. No, I like all of them, but I won't need a fourth. I won't need my own cat if there's a bunch of cats there already.
Sure, but you would prefer to have your own cat rather than the 3 cats there.
No, because actually I would prefer my sister's cat. My sister's cat is like the sweetest little guy that I've ever known. I've like
Papillon?
Seriously like, huh? Papillon.
Yeah.
Papillon.
Yeah. We had 2 great family cats that I loved a lot, and I never thought I would love a cat more than I loved the last one. And then my sister got Poppy, and he is just
Poppy.
He's awesome. I love him so much.
Wow.
And
we just had a glad space. Look at that.
Yeah, and he gets really excited whenever he sees me. So I think he actually likes me. Like
cute.
So my parents' cats don't get excited when they see me, but they tolerate me now. So and they're both adorable. So, but
wow.
I just sent some cat pics to the group chat.
Hell yeah.
Ditto.
Heck yeah.
I love Ditto. And I also love Buster, but I feel like I see more of Ditto than Buster.
Yeah, well, that's because Buster will generally be sleeping in like one place in the house, and it's usually not where I am. So
and it's not photogenic. It's just like
no, he is photogenic. I'm just
he's
not
very
in there,
photogenic.
so I'm not seeing him to take pictures.
It's fair.
But Ditto.
Maybe we'll put some pictures on the. Maybe we'll put some pictures on the Twitter.
Yeah,
when this
episode
definitely
got
wow, look at that! We've reached the plug part.
Of Buster and Ditto.
Check out Crying at the Book Club on Twitter at Crying Book Club. Who knows what's happening with Twitter? I was every time I scroll through my Twitter now, suggested videos, and it's just like R-rated like shit every time now. Because I don't know if the moderation team's not there. What?
What is
how do I get
your Twitter?
No, how do I get that? I want my Twitter to be all like R-rated videos.
I'll give you the instructions after the episode, but you can review us. We're on a lot of podcast platforms, all podcast platforms that we know of and care about. So good, give us some 5-star reviews. If it's out of 10, don't give us 5 stars though. Give us like 9.
Give us all the stars.
9.5, something there. But yeah, you can find Jean-Luc on Twitter at Mountain Dew Liker. You find his letterbox at JL Botville, and it's a treasure trove of films. There's over the years, the collection has been very big. And anything recent from?
Well, I haven't seen anything recently. Okay, well that's not true. I have become acquainted with Art the Clown, the protagonist of the Terrifier film franchise.
The protagonist, wow.
Yes, he is. He's a good guy. I like him a lot. I want to be friends with him. He's a funny little guy. And probably by the time this goes up, you'll see more movies logged. I also saw the new Park Chan-wook film, Decision to Leave, which was fantastic. And it's about what if a girl was so hot she made you forgive her for murder.
I've got to check this out.
And I'm like, damn, it do be that way sometimes.
Wow.
So it was very good.
Emily is on Twitter at @mpandonata, Letterboxd at Pandabor, Twitch at Pandabor, where I believe you are streaming and will be streaming when this is up the Ace Attorney series. Is that a safe bet?
Yes.
Sick.
Yes. As of recording on the second game in the Ace Attorney series, who knows where I will be when this episode goes up.
I feel like you'll still be Ace Attorney unless you're like just.
Oh, it'll definitely be Ace Attorney because I have the trilogy of like the first 3 games. But hey, who knows if I will be on game 2 or 3 when this comes out.
Damn. And what Emily is on, or working on, or was on, or shall be on, are some podcasts. Imagine Me and You Tonight, Fresh Podcast Market. That Looks Terrible, which is out next year.
Yes.
Coming soon.
Very
exciting. We've been hyping it up exclusively. We announced the date 2 weeks ago, or the time frame, and we're doubling down.
Yes.
Any other podcasts you want to talk about, Emily? Because I know there's more that are involved with you, but if you want to keep those secret.
I've been on other podcasts. I've had guest episodes on Sailor Business and the Home for Wayward OCs and Loser Like Me and
Warrior Chats.
Warrior Chats that I do with Chad over on the Opinions Are Cheap feed, and I've also been on Opinions Are Cheap. I'm in places.
Heck yeah. You can find me on Twitter at AlexHansiak, and you can find the 3 of us actually on an episode. I think it's on Warrior Chats. It's on the thing talking about some music that came out now about a month ago. But it's Taylor Swift versus Carly Rae. There's only one winner, the fans. So
there's only one winner. It's me.
It's Emily and Jean-Luc.
I don't think the Taylor Swift fans won on that one. Can't lie.
Hey, you gotta listen to the show, Jean-Luc. I'm not spoiling it.
I think Taylor Swift fans took an L at the end of October.
Wow. Couldn't have happened to a nicer group. But that will wrap us up. Emily, Jean-Luc, thank you so much for stopping by the show that you're on and host every 2 weeks. So it's good.
Yeah, you're welcome. It took a lot out of me.
You're welcome.
Hey,
I woke up from a nap for this.
We made it. And remember, folks, to always get a cat. Even if you have one, get another cat. Treat it well. And as Jean-Luc always says,
I love the French.
I love the French. Oh man, he's such a scamp. He is Quebecois.
I'm a what?